हेलो एवरीवन, नक्शेबाजी के 10वें संस्करण में आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. वेलकम टू द 10th edition of Nakshebaazi. Here we are trying to learn some of the important, interesting nuggets of Indian history through maps. Right? That is what we are aiming for. We have completed 1/3 of the themes which we had in mind. Right? Please let us know. Each one of us, I want each one of your feedback. How are you finding it? If there's anything, any specific theme which you want us to take up, right? And if you notice, we are also trying to go chronologically, although I'm sure you would agree. Chronology is something which we are trying to impose here, because a lot of the things which we are studying are processes. So they overlap rather than coming one after the other, isn't it? So any which way, for our understanding, we are trying to keep it chronologically in some kind of coherence. For today, I have something, a very interesting time period and region to discuss here with you. We are going to take up the time period of around, if you recall, in the last session we were talking about these South Indian polities we were discussing, isn't it? Later Chalukyas, Rashtrakuta, etc. I mentioned, if you recall. Now I want to take up the time period of somewhere around 900, 800 to around, let's say, 1100. And I'm going to give you some idea about the North India. Some important polities, some important people, some interesting information associated with them. Again, remember, this is prior to, an entry of Islam as a settled empire. Right? So this is where they actually began. Right, the Islamic invasions. So let's not और कोई व्यर्थ की बात नहीं करते, आगे बात को बढ़ा देते हैं. I am going to talk about the Rajputs, and I will not be talking a lot about the Turkish invasion here. I would mostly be focusing upon the Rajputs here, and would just try and give you some idea how are they spread. How are they spread, right? इस पर मैं अभी focus नहीं कर रहा हूं. That will make the video a bit too lengthy. Right? Okay. So, from around 750 to around 950, 1000 CE, Satish Chandra, he tells us that there was a kind of a tripartite struggle. I'm sure you must have seen this map somewhere. A tripartite struggle over the areas of Kannauj. And the three powers which are engaged here are the eastern power, the one in east, the Palas, patronizing Vajrayana Buddhism. Right? On the west and central side, there is your Gurjara Pratiharas. Gurjara Pratiharas. And on the Deccan side are the Rashtrakuta. And they are consistently engaging in conflict. Most of the time it is Rashtrakuta who's trumping both of the other ones. But tables are also turned at times. Okay? So now if you look at this, this is Rashtrakuta at its apex, the dark green region. And these light green regions are the vassals. That means they accepted Rashtrakuta's dominance. Okay? And these are your Gurjara Pratiharas. Today we are focusing primarily on this region of the map. इस पर हमारा आज का focus ज़्यादा रहने वाला है. Right? So, at times Pratiharas would be limited just like this, or they would expand. The Palas would expand. If you look at some of the rules of the, rulers like Dharmapal and all, They had extensive empires. Notice this Kabul Shahi dynasty. Okay, so by around 900 CE, I'm moving the story forward, right? And I'm taking you towards the genesis of emergence of Rajputs. So what happens is the Gurjara Pratihar in north, that starts to decline. That starts to decline, and it somewhere fragments, disintegrates, splinters, as people say. It broke down into small clan-based ruling families, small kingdoms. These rulers are collectively called as Rajputs, right? So these are your Kabul Shahi, right? They were ruling the entire Kabul around region, Kabul and Kandahar region. And initially these guys were Buddhists. They were known as Buddhist Shahis. Then in around 870, 900, they became Hindus and came to be known as, they also became Rajputs and came to be known as Hindu Shahi. These, Gurjara Pratihar and all the Rajputs, a lot of scholars argue that these guys are basically people of Central Asian origin. All those people which we read about, the Central Asian people who are coming here. You remember the Huns, such people. So they are coming from the joint stock of all those Central Asian people. And of course the local marriages, marrying to the local women, that must have happened as well. Right? So there's one very interesting book which I can recommend to you guys. This is one by Peggy Mohan. It goes by the name Language Wanderers, something like that. If you'll hunt Peggy Mohan books, you will find a book on language wanderers, something like that title. It's a very, very wonderful book. I am in the process of reading it, haven't read it. Thode se hi padhe hain, but yeah, I'm getting some sense of it, and what she's proposing is wonderful. What she's proposing is wonderful. You should know that. You should know that. Right? Read her interview. There are two people, in fact, I would ask you to go and please read their findings. Right? Read what they are saying. Because these guys are doing one very important task. They are collating all the latest research from various fields which have been done into this, into this area. Our entire genetic profiling has been done. We know precisely what kind of cultural groups entered here. And we know that they were male-dominated groups who married the local indigenous women. So one is Tony Joseph, that you should probably go and, I'm sure you guys are hard pressed on time, but these are very simple books. The best part is they're very simple books. इतनी आसान भाषा में आपको समझाएंगे, just like a simple argument that they are making. Right? That is what makes these authors so brilliant, probably. One is Tony Joseph and the other one is Peggy Mohan. Right? Just try and find out what they are trying to say. Maybe we can discuss it. Maybe we can discuss it somehow. What I'm trying to tell you here is that these Gurjara Pratiharas, they start splintering. Right? They start splintering and they broke down into several feudatory families, feudal families. जो सेंट्रल पावर रही होगी वो गायब हो गई और ये छोटे छोटे जो इनके रूलिंग फैमिलीज क्लैंस थे, they created small kingdoms which are collectively called as Rajputs. Which are collectively called as Rajputs. Now, Rajputs are very interesting people. They're very interesting people, right? There are apparently 36 clans of Rajput, right? Divided among three categories, Suryavanshi, Chandravanshi, and Agnivanshi, right? And they have beautiful genealogies related to mythical and legendary figures. During this phase, when Gurjara Pratiharas, splinters, and many such smaller entities emerge, we are being told of a legend in certain books. We are being informed of a legend. See how interesting it is. This is about a sacred fire sacrifice which is being conducted at Mount Abu. And from that Agni emerge the Agnivanshi Rajput. So they are just like there are solar dynasty, the lunar dynasty, they are the fire dynasty. And several such dynasties emerge and they claim Agnivanshi lineage. The Brahmins on their part, they organize wonderful ceremonies, just like in the olden times, to give legitimacy to such rulers. And in return, the Rajputs guaranteed that they will be the saviors of Varnashram Dharma. So it was this very interesting alliance of the ruling class and the priestly class that I'm sure you would have noticed a dozen times, throughout our history, the global history. The ruling class and the priestly class, they are in cahoots, right? वो यहाँ पर भी हमको देखने को मिलता है. And this Brahmin Rajput alliance, it simply hollowed our society. Of course, I'm telling you one of the perspective. This is what Satish Chandra and a lot of other scholars tell us. Right? And this is what NCRT IGNU material tells us. But as I'm sure you would agree, history is a lot about perspective. History is a lot about perspective. A couple of latitudes born here and there, and you would have been reading an entirely different history. Can you believe it? Right? So, okay. So a lot of these people, a lot of these Rajputs come in, and we hear that the Rajput Brahmin, they get into this kind of an agreement. There are several, again, there are several set of Brahmins who start giving them a lot of, credibility through their ceremonies. And in return, the kings would shower these Brahmins with a lot of patronage and land, etc., etc., ensuring that the hegemony of Brahmins remain intact. It is this hollowness in the society which was responsible for the entire onslaught that we faced, because our ruling class had become absolutely devoid of any sense for the masses. The Islamic commanders would eat with their soldiers, would get down from the horse, would eat with their soldiers. But the Rajputs, because of all the Brahmanical rules of caste, etc., they cannot go and share a meal. They cannot build that kind of a camaraderie because of the caste hierarchy. As a result, that esprit de corps, the sense of unity among a group, was never there. One way to look at it. देखो कभी भी किसी एक इंसान की बात तुरंत मत मानो. Never do that. खुदा भी आके आपसे बोले तो आप कहिए रुक जाइए, मैं सोचूंगा तब बताऊंगा आपको. यार, use your brain, right? Seriously, use your brain, man. So some of these important, clans which emerge here are, for example, we hear of, okay, all right. So I'm just going to mention some names here, and I'll also help you find out where they are in maps, right? So Paramars of Malwa, the Paramars of Malwa, right? They are ruling the entire Malwa region, just, above Gujarat, in front of Gujarat, I should say, actually, right? So that region, they are ruling here, Paramars, right? And it is the Paramars from where a very popular king called as Bhoj emerges, right? Who establishes the city of Bhopal, right? Chauhans of Ajmer, Ajmer in Rajasthan. Achha, by the way, remember, these are clans. So there is a Chauhan of Ajmer, then there is also a Chauhan of Shakambri, and several other lines as well, right? So these are clans, remember. Okay, so Chauhans of Ajmer, that is why specifying the location is important. Okay, Solankis or Chaulukya, you remember. Solankis or Chaulukya of Gujarat. They are also very fascinating dynasty. I will speak about them. Right? Their capital was Anhilwada. Also known as Patan. Then there is Gahadavala of Kannauj. Gahadavala of Kannauj region. Another very important player here. One of the most powerful among all. Right? Then we have the Chandelas of Khajuraho. Chandelas of Khajuraho. They are the ones who constructed those massive temples at Khajuraho. Right? In around 16th century CE, they were replaced by the Bundelkhand Rajputs. And the region became known as Bundelkhand. Right? Then there are several others as well. I will quickly tell you because I believe you should know this. It can help you not only in a direct question or two, it can also, it will help you in understanding what is going on a lot of the times, right? Sisodias, the Mewar ke Rana jo hua karte the Udaipur region, they were called as the Sisodias, right? Then the region of Jaipur, this was under the rule of Kachwa rulers, Jai Singh and all. Right? Jai Singh of Ajmer, etc. jo bolte hain, they are all Kachwaha rulers. They gained prominence under Akbar. Rathaurs of Jodhpur and Bikaner. Rathaurs are there. Bhati of Jaisalmer. Jadeja of Kutch. Right? And see, these Jadejas, they are Rajputs and they are claiming descent from a legendary king of Iran, Jamshed. Do you get my point? Do you see how fascinating is the history of Rajputs? Right? The Brahmins gave them the status of Kshatriya. Initially, you remember, I mean, I'm sure you guys probably know it somewhere. Brahmins, they gave these outsiders the tag of Mlech. But once they acquired power, right, they were granted status of Kshatriyas and they became the ruling class. And it has happened so many times. We shouldn't be amazed at this, right? We shouldn't be, I mean, this is a very natural process somewhere in human society. Because if you look at it, right from the times of Renaissance, religion and state are considered as two potent source of authority, and they have always been trying to challenge it somewhere. We all at, I believe. Right? Interesting. Chalo, आगे देख रहे हैं बच्चे. Junagadh, this is a small state, princely state in Saurashtra. Right? There, Raizadas were ruling for a while. Somnath temple is here in Junagadh. Okay? Tomars, they were occupying the Delhi region. Delhi was a village known as Dhillika. Right? And Gwalior region. The Tomars were strong here. Chauhans, they will become very powerful. They are very powerful in Ajmer, and then they will enter and capture the Tomar area as well. Delhi and all. Right? Several dynasties in the hilly regions of Himachal, Jammu, Uttarakhand. A lot of hilly states there under Rajputs. Right? Dogras of Jammu and Kashmir, very important. Dogras of Jammu and Kashmir. And Katoch of Kangra. Because I just wanted you to remember that these guys are present in hilly states as well. And this is why Pahadi miniature paintings, Pahadon se to aa rahi hai. Rajputs patronized it. In around 1191, right, there's this guy, Muhammad Ghori, right, a Turk. He invades India. Before him, of course, Mahmud of Ghazni has already gone and went. I'm not talking about Turkish invasions here. I'm talking mainly about the Rajput component. Right, so the Ghurids entered. Initially, they lost to the Chauhans here. The Chauhans were here in Ajmer and Delhi region. They defeated the Chauhans. Initially, they lost, but then they defeated Prithviraj Chauhan and entered Delhi and established gradually the Ghurid Sultanate. Paramars of Malwa, do you see? The Solankis or Cholukya, the Chandel. Only these many were left, others became pretty small. Right? This is Bhoj, Raja Bhoj of Bhopal. Right? His timeline is this. He ruled in around 1050. There is also a Gurjara Pratihara ruler, Bhoj. Right? He is somewhere around the 9th century. Right? This is Paramars Bhoj of Malwa. He is the one who establishes Bhopal, and a huge patron of arts, literature, sciences. He established Bhojshala. He establishes Bhojshala, basically, which is a center for Sanskrit studies. Very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. This is one of his statue, which I guess is in Bhopal. I'm not too sure though. This is Prithviraj Chauhan, Prithviraj III, the third in bolte. And we have this book called as Prithviraj Raso, written by Chandvardai, who was the poet, right, of this fellow. It's a very interesting story about the entire Battle of Tarai. It also tells us that, this guy was very ambitious, how he defeats Tomars. And then Prithviraj is also, he falls in love with Sanyogita, who is Jayachand's daughter. Who's Jayachand? Jayachand is the king of Gahadaval, the Gahadaval king of Kannauj, right? And he, of course, so this guy, Prithviraj Chauhan, in all, he goes all macho, right? He goes all macho, and he basically elopes or abducts the female in question. And Jayachand was quite pissed off about this. And so when Ghuri entered, When Ghuri entered, Prithviraj asked for help because he was not prepared the second time. He did not expect Ghuri to return so soon. He asked for help. Everybody came forward, but Jayachand said, "Get lost. I'm not helping you." So a lot of the time, Jayachand is considered as a treacherous person to the cause of India. That's a very stupid way to look at history. I'm sure you would agree, right? जब वहाँ इंडिया ही नहीं था तो धोखा किसको दे रहा था वो? Right? That's a stupid notion. Do not impose modern terminology out of context. Never do that. Do not judge people of certain era from our current value stand. You must criticize what is there, but don't judge people very harshly. That's idiotic. हर अच्छी जगह से बेटा कुछ मतलब हर जगह से कुछ अच्छा सीखना है. हमको तो इंसान मतलब ऊपर वाले ने मुस्कुराने के लिए बनाया है ना, बनाया है कि नहीं बनाया? तो हर जगह से कुछ अच्छा सीखिए एंड पढ़िए. Right? So this is Jayachand of Kannauj, right? This is Jayachand of Kannauj. Okay, and another very interesting story which I want to share here with you guys is about the Solankis. The Solankis of Gujarat, right? Here in Gujarat, there was this wonderful Jain monk. His name is given as Hemchandra Suri. He was called as Kalikal Sarvagya. Somebody who knows everything which is to be known. Wow, right? So he's called as Kalikal Sarvagya. Hemchandra Suri. He was a Jain. And it is because of this Hemchandra Suri that a Solanki, a Rajput king, a warrior, Kshatriya king, he became a Jain. And he banned killing of animals across his kingdom. One very powerful example of how values can change dramatically. How values, given a proper jolt, they can change dramatically. A Rajput, Kshatriya, somebody who's supposed to be, born for violence. And he became a Jain, Kumarapal. Right? And very interesting message for all of us here, I think. Another couple of points, as I was talking about, right, the Chandelas of Khajuraho, they constructed these beautiful temples. I'm sure you must have seen these images like, at least a dozen times. But every time you look at them, right, pause. These are very majestic images. Do try and visit as well. Right? They are very wonderfully sculpted. Carved. A lot of erotic imagery is present here. Why? Let me know if you know the answer. Please do comment. मुझे बताना ज़रूर यार अगर तुम्हें कोई ऐसी चीज़ मालूम है. I will also tell you maybe a couple of interesting theories which I know of. There's a lot of erotic imagery here in these Khajuraho temples. Right? And what could be the reasoning here? All right, so these were all the little things that I wanted to place in front of you for today's Nakshebaazi. I hope it was fun for you people. Next class, we will pick up another very interesting theme somewhere down the line. And see you around. Have fun. Bye-bye. Take care.